My dear sister, my dear brother, you keep saying it was a breakup. But what if I told you it was actually a mercy you haven't recognized yet? What if Allah closed that door because the next one opens to something far, far better? Sometimes what leaves your life was never part of your Jannah in the first place. Allah took them to return you to Him. My beloved brother, my precious sister, you've been hurting quietly, privately. Maybe no one even knows the tears you've been holding in. You smile in front of others, but behind closed doors, your heart feels shattered. You're trying to make sense of what happened. You keep replaying it in your mind, don't you? Why did it end like this? Why did Allah let them walk away after everything? Wasn't this love? Wasn't this my future? But what if I told you something that changes everything? What if I told you this wasn't a punishment? It wasn't a curse. It wasn't your failure. It wasn't Allah turning away from you. It was a rescue. Yes, a rescue from your Lord, from the one who knows what your eyes can't see and what your heart doesn't yet understand. You thought it was just a breakup, but in the unseen world, it was your soul being pulled away from a path that would have drained you, a path that may have felt warm, but was slowly dimming your light. Because sometimes we hold on to people who are not meant to be part of the future. Allah is preparing for us, and we can't see that. We just see the affection, the shared memories, the plans, the dreams, but Allah sees the truth behind every smile. He hears the words that were said behind your back. He knows the distractions that were beginning to pull your heart away from Him. And out of love for you, He didn't let it continue. You cried over someone walking away. But the reality is, they weren't walking. They were being removed. Yes, it hurts. But just like a surgeon cuts to heal, Allah sometimes breaks your heart only to save your soul. And I know right now it feels like a storm, like everything collapsed. You keep asking, why me? But let me gently remind you, when Allah loves someone, He protects them even from the things they think are good. You see, sometimes we fall so deeply for a person that we begin to forget our purpose. We start making them our source of happiness. We check our phones more than we check our hearts. We pray less. We think less of where we're going in the akhirah. And suddenly, without realizing it, we start depending on a human soul more than the one who created both of yours. And that's dangerous. Because anything you place above Allah becomes a test, becomes a weight, and slowly it begins to damage your peace. So Allah, in His mercy, removes what's standing in the way, even if it's someone you thought you couldn't live without. And that's what happened. You thought you lost someone, but really you were being saved from losing yourself. Because they weren't just taking your time, they were taking your focus. They weren't just present in your life, they were replacing the space that belonged to your Rabb. And Allah knew if He let you keep going, you would have gone too far. So what did He do? He stepped in, quietly, painfully, but mercifully. He took them, not because He hates you, but because He loves you more than you could ever imagine. Perhaps you dislike something while it is good for you. Quran 2:216. That's not just a verse, that's your story. You dislike the separation, but it was good for your future, good for your soul, good for your akhirah. You thought they completed you, but the truth is, they were slowly emptying you. And when Allah removes someone like that, He's not just taking away, He's making room for your sujood to feel sweet again. Room for your heart to rest in dhikr instead of overthinking. Room for peace that doesn't depend on anyone's attention. Maybe you don't realize this yet, but the version of you that's rising now the one who prays more sincerely, the one who cries to Allah with real words, the one who's learning to walk alone, that version is stronger, wiser, more beautiful in the sight of your Lord. And trust me, one day not far from now, you will look back on this exact pain, this very heartbreak, and whisper with tears, Ya Allah, thank you for taking them away, even when I was still begging you to let them stay, because now you'll know what you thought was the end was actually the beginning. What you thought was rejection was protection, and what you thought was heartbreak was actually your rescue. You didn't lose. You were redirected. You were saved. You were loved in the most sacred way. And one day, you'll realize that this wasn't a breakup. It was the moment Allah brought you back home to Him. The separation was protection, not rejection. You felt it, didn't you? That moment when they started slipping away, when their replies became shorter, their presence became colder, and their heart started turning into a stranger. You saw it happening, and still you tried to hold on. You tried to explain yourself again and again. You tried to pray harder. You thought maybe if you gave more, they would stay. But the truth is, no matter how tightly you held on, you couldn't stop what Allah had already written to leave. They didn't just walk away. They were removed by a Lord who loves you too much to let you stay tied to something that was slowly breaking your soul. You saw it as rejection, but He saw it as protection, because sometimes what you want the most is the very thing that will take you the farthest from who you're meant to become. You looked at them and saw a future, but Allah looked deeper and saw how they would have buried your potential, delayed your purpose, and distracted you from the real mission of your life, to return to Him with a clean heart. Yes, it felt like you weren't enough for them, but the reality is, they were never enough for the version of you Allah is building. They left because they couldn't walk with the you that's rising, the you that's praying again, the you that's waking up for tahajjud with a cracked heart and a sincere tongue, the you that's no longer begging for attention, but begging for peace. You wanted it to last. You made dua for them. You asked Allah to keep them. But when He didn't, you felt abandoned. Let me tell you something. Allah heard every word. He counted every tear, and still He chose to let them go. Not because He ignored your pain, but because He saw what you couldn't. He saw what was being planned behind your back. He saw the shift in their heart when you weren't around. He saw the way they treated your soul carelessly, and out of mercy, He stepped in. They were standing between you and your growth, between you and your healing, between you and the clarity you've been asking for in secret. You couldn't see it, but they were holding you back. And sometimes growth requires subtraction. You didn't fail. You didn't do too little. You weren't too much. You weren't impossible to love. You were protected. Protected from becoming someone who forgets Allah. Protected from a future that was built on temporary comfort. Protected from a bond that looked beautiful on the outside, but was hollow on the inside. You may have loved them deeply, but Allah loves you more. So He removed them even when you were still asking for them. And if you're wondering why He didn't answer your dua to keep them, maybe He was answering your older dua, the one you made in tears. Ya Allah, give me what's best for my deen, my dunya, and my akhirah. That's the dua He honored. And maybe, just maybe, you didn't lose anything. You were spared. You were rescued. You were hidden again until someone deserving is written. Don't confuse their absence with Allah's silence. Don't confuse their rejection with your worth. They left because Allah cleared the path for something deeper, something safer, something that won't pull you away from Him, but push you toward Him. This is not a punishment. It's a rerouting. It's a wrapped in mercy. It's a blessing dressed like heartbreak. You will heal. You will smile again. Not because someone returns, but because you finally understand why they had to go. There is no rejection in what Allah removes. Only redirection. Only love in its highest, most sacred form. The people who are written for your peace will not disturb your soul. The people who are meant for your path will never push you away from your wrap. Let that be your sign. Let that be your measure. And when you feel the ache of missing them, turn to the one who never left. Because it is in his company that your wounds will finally close. Maybe you didn't get closure from them, but this is your closure. This is your peace. They were never rejecting you. They were leaving you so Allah could protect you. And that is the most loving thing your Lord could ever do. Before Allah elevates you, He separates you. You're wondering why it ended, why they walked away, why it all fell apart when you were just beginning to dream. You sit in silence now, and sometimes that silence is louder than any noise you've ever heard. You feel abandoned, empty, cut off from the world. And even though people are around, it still feels like no one is really with you. But I want to gently tell you something tonight, something your heart might have forgotten while it was breaking. Before Allah elevates you, He separates you. Before He blesses your soul with something greater, He creates distance from everything that isn't meant to go with you. Even the Prophet ﷺ, before the Quran descended, before Jibreel A.S. appeared, before he was called Rasulullah, he was alone in the cave of Hira, isolated, separated, not because he was forgotten, but because he was being prepared. You see, isolation is not abandonment. It's purification. It's where Allah begins to clean the heart, clear the distractions, and prepare you for something you would never expect. Sometimes, what looks like a breakdown is actually your breakthrough in disguise. You thought this heartbreak was pulling you down. But what if it's pulling you up? What if this is your cave moment? The place where everything becomes silent, so you can finally hear the voice of your soul again. There's a reason Allah takes people out of your life before He blesses it. There's a reason why certain doors close before others open. Some people can only survive in your old chapter. They can't breathe in the light Allah is bringing next. And He knows that. So He separates you. He disconnects you. Not because He's angry with you, but because He wants to upgrade you without interference. Because if certain people stayed in your life, you would never grow. You'd stay emotionally dependent.